because this is, for whatever reason, the journey that we're on. And I can't, I can't exit the train. I tried. It's not
Yeah.
working. Tried to get off that train.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
I'm just still stuck on it. All the doors are locked.
Mhm.
So
Yes.
it's, I'm like, well, so then the people that are going to be on the train are going to be the people on the train. And I just
Mhm.
can't, you know what I mean? There was a certain grace that kind of like came into that, where it was like, I don't have to have a filter anymore. And there
Yeah.
was some freedom in that. Obviously that was not for me. That did not equal permission to like emotionally annihilate people
Of
or
course.
like, blast people to death. But it was more just like, I just have to be okay with what I'm able to do and not able to do. But it also kind of forged in me this courage to say things that I probably would have never said,
Mhm.
advocate for myself in
Absolutely.
ways that I probably never would. And I know that I watched that in you as well, to where you were able to say, I mean, we are part of a very prophetic culture, and
Yes.
people will come up to you and say things well-meaning, right? They're
Yes.
well-meaning, of
Absolutely.
course. But like, we also have to be okay, 100% okay with people giving us feedback and saying, I'm sorry, that doesn't work for me right now.
Yes.
This is not, take that to the Lord in intercession and don't tell me again, because like
Yes.
it's hurtful.
Yes.
And we had people do the same thing with our daughter, where it was like, oh, there must be some sin in your family
Mm.
or
Uh,
unforgiveness or, yeah. And I was like,
then
I,
there's just a level of stupidity. Can I just
yes,
say that? Like there is just a level of stupidity where it's like, did you even hear the words coming out of your mouth?
I'm
Because
like
that was just
pretty
dumb.
sure I just turned around and walked. I don't think I said
Uh,
anything. I was just like, I don't even know
that's
what
a
to
whole
say to
other thing.
that. And I just walked away because I was like, I'm either gonna burst into tears or
Oh my
like
gosh.
throttle you. So
Mm,
the former is better than the latter. But
mhm.
I do think I think we have to give ourselves permission to be really good communicators, in the sense of communicating things that maybe feel too vulnerable or too like they're too close, they're too tender, they're
Mhm.
too touchy.
Mhm. Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like that do or die. If I don't
Mhm.
communicate this,
Yeah.
I'm not going to be okay, and I'm not willing to let this compromise the relationship simply because it feels too much. Like,
Yes.
and the other, the beautiful part about that, I think that you would agree with this, is that it brings people that are able to be closer,
Yes.
right? And
Yes.
they're able to step in to that place with
Mhm.
you and maybe cook you a meal and say, do you just need to be, can we just be mad together about this? Cause I'm really pissed off. Like, can we just draw angry pictures? Cause I'm really mad right now. Like,
Yeah.
you know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, it allows people to come into a place where you need them, but
Yeah.
maybe you don't know how to ask for it. And,
Absolutely.
or even just say, I don't even know what I need. Like, can
Mhm.
you just be with me so I don't feel so alone? Like, in
Yes,
the
that's
yuck
huge.
and the blah of it
Yeah,
all,
that's huge in itself. There's actually a principle that you learn in our field of, life coaching and heart coaching and I mean in your field as well, where you learn about attunement. And
Yes.
attunement is, they did a scientific study where they mapped a brain of one person that had nobody walking with them through pain, and then simultaneously mapped another brain of a person that had someone walking with them that was not trying to solve their problems. They weren't
Mm,
capable of fixing it. They were just saying, I'm here. I don't know what it looks like. I don't know how to do this. I'm just here with you. And the person that didn't have anyone walking with them through pain could not get beyond a certain point
yep.
in processing pain. The person that had someone walking with them was able to actually walk through the
Oh,
pain and get to the other side. And so they coined it attunement. There really is a huge factor of just having someone sit with you in pain that's not trying to fix it, doesn't know what to do. They're
yeah.
not contributing anything other than taking up space. And that's not like a bad phrase. It's like they're literally just taking up space next to you to say, like, I'm just not going to let you do this alone.
Right.
And scientifically, even just in our bodies, if we just have someone there that's just like, I'm with you in this,
Yeah.
I'm walking it out. I don't know how either, but like I'm grabbing your hand and I'm not letting go. Even just having attunement will help you get through the process of pain. And, the process can be short or long. It can be
Yeah.
up and down. It can be bumpy or smooth. But having attunement, having people attuned that are just there in it to win it will just by proxy get you through that process of pain. And so
Right.
there's a huge value in just having people, which does require some transparency and vulnerability to say, like, this is where I'm at in my place of pain. And sometimes you will know what you need, and sometimes you won't know what you need.
Right.
But I'm so grateful for the all-weather friends that stuck with me through all of the ups and downs of pain, because I really believe that that in itself was a huge factor as to why I could get to the other side of all of the nuances of pain in that process, is because I just had people who were committed to, like, I'm in it in the dark and I'm in it in the light, and
Right.
we're in it.
Right, exactly. And it does, I mean, it changes everything, right? And it's the way that God wired us for
Yeah,
community. And I think that's part of, if we're going to talk about like the spiritual aspect of this, right? Which is that if the enemy had one strategy to use when
mhm,
people are walking through this, it would be isolation, because
absolutely.
he knows that we cannot heal
Yep.
in isolation. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not saying you can't encounter God on your own and get, like, that's not what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
I'm saying there is a measure of healing we can get on our own. And then there's a measure, a greater measure of healing that we get by people being with us and around
Yes.
us, and really being like God for us when we can't see God for ourselves, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
And so I kind of just want to touch on that a little bit, because I know you've shared, obviously, like you've shared in our community about this, but I think just for listeners, because I think this is the crux, this is like where probably the most pain happens, is when it begins to impact our relationship with God, the one
Mhm.
that we are supposed to get our strength from, right? And it changes when you have to walk through something instead of being delivered from it, right?
Yes.
It
Yes.
changes something in our perception about God. And so I would just love for you to share a little bit, if you're comfortable with it, how shame began to change your, like, because there was a fight there for a while of that, like, I want to stay connected to God, but I'm really kind of mad right now, and I'm disillusioned and I'm hurt and I'm disappointed, and like all of those things. So can you tell us a little bit about what that shame kind of looked and felt like, and how that impacted that part of your relationship?
Yeah, absolutely. So we know, just like walk with the Lord, reading the word, we know that the very first thing that ever came against the Lord was the question of if he was good.
Yeah.
Did God really say that that would happen? And that was the very first, uh, I would say, accusation or invite to accusation ever made, was
Yeah.
against his goodness and his character. And so that's a weaponization of shame that
Mhm.
is very real, which it will always challenge the goodness of God.
Yeah.
And so throughout my journey and the different ebbs and flows, that was always one of the biggest voices, is challenging who God was and who he wasn't. Well, if God is good, then why won't he heal your body and give you a baby? If God is good, then
Yep.
why are you even going through this infertility journey? If God is good, then why did he give that woman her fifth baby and you don't have one? If
Yep.
you matter so much to God and he loves you as much as he loves everybody else, then why do they have six kids and you have none? If God, like, it's
Yep.
always that if God is this, then this, and again, we're conditioned for programs and systems. And so if God is good, then everything has to be good in order for him to be good.
Right.
And so there was a lot that was challenged in my journey. There was a lot that was challenge of my own worth to God. There was a lot about if my past had really been redeemed, because, like, could this be because
Yes.
of all of the stuff that I did before, all of
Yep.
the partying and all the people I slept with and all the things, like, could this actually be that God didn't redeem my past and this is punishment for my past? One day I
Yeah.
always knew I'd have to, like, be punished for that, and so there was a lot of that, of being presented with an opportunity to have something oppose
Yes.
core belief that I had about God,
Mhm.
and I always tell people, and it's because I've been asked so much, like, if you had to do that all over again, if you got to choose not to do that and just have babies right away or do it again, would you do it again? And I would do it 100, I would do it again, because the journey of all of those questions, the journey of all those accusations, the journey of having to really sit down with those questions in my own head and really discover for myself who God was in those moments of pain and disappointment and not having answers and not having healing and not having the promises fulfilled and not being able to understand why this and why that doesn't equal that. Of all of
Yes.
that, what I know about God now because of that journey, I would not
Mhm.
trade for like skipping
Absolutely.
the journey. And I do think that the reason I was able to come out alive from all that pain, and when I say alive, I mean like not just living, breathing, but like
Your heart is
whole to
alive.
where, yeah,
Yeah.
where my heart is like intact, healthy, healed, and all that wasn't necessarily because the promise was later fulfilled in my life. Like, yes, hugely, absolutely. But it was because I was able to um establish in myself who God was,
Mhm. Yeah.
despite what wasn't happening in my life. And
Right.
so, because if God can remain the constant, then I can always lay that pain. I remember a specific time in my walk with this journey. It was probably one of the highest peaks of pain and disappointment. And I literally felt in my own heart and mind like this moment, this defining moment where everything was gonna everything moving forward and everything I'd gone through was all going to be dependent on what I decided in that very moment.
Mm.
And I don't know
Yeah.
if you've ever experienced that in
Mhm.
your own journey with your daughter, or like your miscarriages, where there's just this moment where, like, what I decide in this moment is going to just make everything else as a result of that. And I remember
Right.
that moment was, will I sacrifice God on the altar of my disappointment, or
Mhm.
will I sacrifice disappointment on the altar of who God is?
Yeah.
Because at that point, they were so opposing, where it was like
Right?
disappointment was
Either
trying
one or the
so
other.
hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like one or the other. I was either going to let disappointment be the sacrifice or God be the sacrifice, one of the two. And I remember choosing, like, I don't even care if I don't even have all the answers. I don't care if I never figure it out. I don't care if ever anything. Disappointment's what's going down, and
Right.
God's character is what I'm going to choose to believe in,
So
even
good.
if it's in the face of nothing. Like, it does not look like God is good at all. Doesn't
Right.
sound like it, look like it, feel like it, but I'm still going to choose to believe that He is. And so
Mhm.
I think that that was a huge factor in how I came out alive, was that I just made choices in that pain, despite what it felt like and looked like and was like. I just, what I was going to choose to believe through those processes of pain was what I think got me through on the other side of it.
Absolutely. And it's that, I just want to like add to that, because I think sometimes when we hear like, oh, just choose that, like it was not, it was a sacrifice, right? Because you're laying down the right to
Yes.
something. But
Yes.
it's also, it's not either or. It was you saying, I'm going to give you my disappointment. I'm
Yes.
going to let you take my hand
Yes.
through the disappointment, right? And I think when we begin to grasp that, like with God, that he's not opposing us, right? It's a choice to invite him in
Mhm.
to what we're experiencing. He's always going to get us through.
Yes.
Um but it doesn't mean it's going to be comfortable either. So you talked a little bit about how that encounter and like some of those, just really allowing God into the process really did, got you through to the other side. But what are some practical things for you that helped you to break through like the shame and the isolation? Because I think, when we're walking through it's hard to see even like what you should be doing. Like, what could I be doing differently? You talked a little bit about advocating for yourself. But what are some practical ways? Like, how do you learn how to build a community of support around you, right? Like, and to get out of the isolation. What are some things that kind of helped you to break through that?
Yeah. Yeah, I think having an outlet for pain is really important.
Yep.
Whatever, obviously a healthy outlet. But having an outlet for pain is so important. And for me, writing was just one of those outlets. My husband and I originally started a YouTube channel because we couldn't find voices to actually like voice what the pain felt like, the disappointments of the doctor's appointments, the disappointments of not being able to like pay for our treatments, all those
Right.
things. And so
Yes.
that became an outlet for us where we were able to get pain out and give pain a voice and not
Right.
avoid pain, but like, you know, um, let it sit at the dining room table. It doesn't get to run our household, but it
Right.
has a place at the table, and then that sort of migrated into, just because it's so much work, which I'm so thankful for everybody that like manages that kind of stuff,
Right.
that makes
I
videos,
know.
because it is so much work, and it just became too much work to do it on the video side. So then I was like, well, I really love to write, and that's very therapeutic for me and helpful. And so I started a blog where we basically just took from the videos and then just kind of shared our story
Yeah.
through the blog. And so that was a huge part of that, just a practical way of helping through the pain. So I think one practical is finding a way to process the pain in a
Yes.
healthy way, whether that's, some people are athletic. So maybe it's, like having a routine of, movement. If it's writing, if it's, having a specific place in nature, like
Yeah.
just somewhere to go to be able to do that. I mean, I remember a friend who was like, do you want to go shoot plates? Like I'll throw plates up in the air and you can shoot them, or, you
Right.
can hit plates with a baseball bat, even
Right.
those kind of things are therapeutic,
Yeah.
I think practically it's, like you touch on building a community. So really getting some core people around you that you can throw SOSs out to and say, this is what I need in this moment. This isn't what I need in this moment. It's going to
Yes.
require some vulnerability to be able to
Mhm.
open up your heart to people. But really getting a community of people, especially now with technology. Like I remember Marco Polo's being with you and Andrea and Madeline and my friends, like having Marco Polos where I could just
Right.
hop on there and just say like, today just sucks and I just need to get it out and just cry and whatever, and just having you guys respond when you could was so helpful. I think that um I remember when I still remember, and I still do this even today with just normal everyday life. I remember one of the biggest things I learned from you is self-care, like in
Mm.
pain. And you taught me about the self-care box, like, hey, build a box that when you have a really crappy day, that you can open up that box and it's all things that help you just
Mm.
process. And so I remember filling up the box with, Epsom salts for a bath,
Yeah.
and filling up, my favorite snacks and movies and letters that I wrote myself of like,
Mm.
hey, when the days really sucks, like here's the things I want you to remember. I think at
Oh,
one point I even put like letters from my friends in there that I would just
yeah.
read on those hard days, and that was a huge part of just a practical thing
Yes.
of that, was just that self-care box, of just having a form of comfort on a hard day.
Right.
Um
That's really
so yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think because that what that touches on for me when you're talking about that, there are so many triggers like to infertility, like just that process. I was never diagnosed with infertility, but I did have to walk, several years of having miscarriages and not knowing why. And, triggers of baby showers and celebrations. And, then they have a baby and then they have another baby. And you're like, cool. And you're just thrown back into that grief cycle.
Mhm.
And we want to avoid the pain instead of nurturing like
Yeah.
ourselves, right? And so having that, I mean, I think I just, well, you make me sound really cool because I actually didn't remember that I said that. um, but that is something that I would do. I would literally have a list on my phone of like my bad day list. So like I'm gonna go to Black Rock and I'm gonna get myself a coffee and a marshmallow bar because that's like my
Mhm.
favorite treat, right?
Mhm.
And I'm gonna go like put on my favorite just comfort movie that I can laugh and cry to, and Phoebe Phoebe Buffay from Friends always hits the spot. So
Always.
always a good choice.
Yeah.
Um, but but it's learning how to like we can't deprive ourselves in
Mhm.
the pain and we want to
Yeah.
because there's the shame element of it too, right? Where it's like, I'm not worthy. I
Yeah.
don't feel worthy of love. I don't feel worthy of being sat with in this moment. I don't, like we just feel like not the best about we're not the best of ourselves is what it feels like. And so it's the hardest thing to do is that like self-nurturing, self-comfort. Like I buy myself flowers on my dad's birthday, like anniversaries like that, where there are just those little heart triggers. And so I would definitely agree with that. Those tips and strategies that you gave that we don't always know the end from the beginning. And so we have to treat ourselves with kindness and compassion for
Mhm.
the journey, just like you wouldn't starve yourself in a marathon. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Like you would be taking breaks, you would be drinking water, you would be hydrating with electrolytes, you might carb load with pasta beforehand. Like there
Mhm.
are things that you have to do for a marathon, and this is one of them.
Yes.
And it's an emotional and physical and spiritual marathon. It's not one or the other. And so the tools that you use in a given season are just like you were saying before, they're going to be different. Like maybe 3 months ago, I was really able to lean heavily on some spiritual practices, and now it needs to be more emotional, physical connection with other people. Like there's different tools for different seasons. So I just love everything that you shared. This was so powerful, and I know it's going to help so many people that are listening. Do you have any like final words of wisdom or words of encouragement for those that might be walking this journey out?
Um, I would say that compassion is one of the biggest um partners in processing pain that would really be one of the most effective partners. One thing at Unhindered that we really had to teach ourselves first through our own like healing our own heart pain, and then something that we walk clients through is the power of compassion, of letting love into pain.
Mhm.
Because when we're in pain, we have a lot of self protectors that come up. If we think of like a drawbridge on a castle, we pull that bridge up to protect from further pain. But the problem when you have the drawbridge up is that everything that's in stays in and everything that's out can't get in.
Yes. Right.
And so whatever amount of love you have or compassion you have in that moment that you pull that drawstring up, that's all you have to help you process. And so actually what we need in places of pain is we need love and compassion. Um, because judgment will always tell us the what, but compassion tells us the why.
Yes. So
Judgment will
good.
tell us, you are in this place of pain and these are the realities that you're facing. But compassion will say, well, why can't I experience this, or why um meaning like why can't I experience more of love in a place of pain, or why can't I have things that I need to help me walk through this, or so it helps
Yeah.
us down to the lower levels of ourselves and our hearts.
Mm.
And so I would just say really going on a journey of welcoming compassion
Mm.
for you know those places where we're sort of conditioned, like, oh, I feel anger, that anger is bad, so
Right.
like I can't feel anger. Well,
Yes.
actually compassion would tell you that anger actually isn't bad. Anger is actually exposing a need that you have. So I
Yes.
feel angry because I feel this. And so
Mm.
compassion is actually what helps us get down to what is it that I'm actually feeling? What is it that I actually need? What is it that anger is telling me? Oh, I
Right.
actually need a boundary here, or I need more love in this place, or I
Mm.
need an answer, or I
Yeah.
need rest. I need a chocolate bar. Like those are very real things. So just
True
going
story.
on a journey of allowing compassion. I think a misconception of compassion is that it's permission. Like, oh, if I have compassion here, that gives me permission to behave badly. But
Mm.
that's actually not the reality of it. That's a misuse of compassion. Compassion
Right.
is actually a really powerful weapon to help us to process pain really well. If we can allow compassion to say, it's actually okay that you feel angry. Let's sit in
Mhm.
that and like allow anger to have a voice. Okay, now that we've allowed anger to have a voice, now let's talk about how we can like get on the
Right.
other side, have ownership, have community, have whatever we need. So I would just say, going on it, if there's any journey in pain that you can go on, it's discovering compassion in the midst of your pain for yourself, for other
Mhm.
people, for your journey, for your future, for your
Mhm.
past, for your present. That can just be a really powerful weapon to help you, process through the journey that you're on.
That's huge. Yep. And I would just add on to that, if you don't know how to be compassionate with yourself, work with somebody who can mirror
Yes,
that for you, until you can, whether that's a
absolutely.
counselor or the Unhindered Life or, life coaching, whatever. Like, I know for me, I had to have it mirrored to me
Yes.
before I could
Yes.
actually like, oh, this is something I can offer myself.
Same.
Because we learn to do for ourselves what we see other people do for us. And
Yes.
if we don't have a good model for that, it's going to be hard. It's like there's no resources to draw from.
Right.
So,
Yeah, absolutely.
so good, Bree. This was amazing. And I know that it's gonna unlock so much for the listeners. And so would you if you wouldn't mind just sharing where people can follow you, like on Instagram or your website. I'm gonna put it in the show notes too, but I just like them to hear from you.
Yeah, so on Instagram, you can find us at The Unhindered Life, and we have a website as well called The Unhindered Life, so you can find us at either of those places.
Awesome. Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on today, Bree. This was so powerful. And yeah, I know this is going to bless so many people.
Thank you so much. It was such a privilege. Thank you.
You're welcome. If you are struggling with shame and the toxic cycle of shame and you don't know how to get out of it, I want to invite you to a 3-week Bible study on stopping the shame cycle. I'm going to lead you through a personalized training in which you'll also get access to the Stop the Shame Cycle journal. We're going to take that journal and then work through it together in a private Voxer group, only for those who have registered, where I'm going to lead you through the breakthrough, inner healing, freedom, and deliverance, and heart compassion that is needed to really break free from that cycle of shame. So make sure to click the link in the show notes.